I told my father, he is the reason this family has been broken for 30 years. I said it at my sister's engagement dinner. 14 people around a table at a restaurant she'd been excited about for weeks, and I'd spent 30 years saying nothing. And I looked at my father sitting at the head of that table laughing at something, and I was just done. My father has two versions. The one the world sees, charming, funny, the guy everyone wants at their party, and the one we grew up with. He never hit us. He didn't need to. He had other ways. The silence that lasted weeks when you disappointed him, the way he'd look at you when you spoke in company like you'd said something embarrassing. The comments about my mum delivered so quietly, she'd doubt herself before she could object. 30 years of my mum making herself smaller so he'd stay calm. 30 years of my sister and I learning to read his moods before we'd eaten breakfast so we'd know what kind of day it was going to be. My mum left him 8 years ago. It had taken her that long, and I understood why, because I'd watched what trying to leave looked like every time before. She'd finally done it and had spent 8 years slowly becoming herself again in a way that was hard to watch because it showed you exactly what 30 years of him had taken from her. My sister had invited him to the dinner because she felt she had to. Her fiancé's family were there and she wanted it to look normal. We'd been making things look normal our whole lives. He was on his third drink when he started. A comment about my mum's new flat, delivered to the table like a joke. Something about how she'd always had expensive taste with other people's money. My mum smiled tightly and looked at her menu. My sister's hand tightened around her wine glass. My fiancé put his hand on my knee under the table because he knows what that smile costs her. I put my fork down. I said his name across the table. He looked at me still smiling, that specific smile he used when he thought a challenge was coming and was already deciding how to handle it. I told him I needed him to hear something I should have said a long time ago. The table went quiet. My sister said my name once. I looked at her and then back at him. I told him he was the reason this family had been broken for 30 years, that I'd spent my childhood reading his moods before breakfast so I could protect my mom and my sister, that she'd spent 8 years becoming someone he'd spent 30 years slowly taking apart, that he sat at this table making jokes about her money while she smiled and said nothing because that was what 30 years of him had trained her to do. His smile faded slowly like he was deciding whether to be amused or offended and couldn't quite land on either. He said I'd always been dramatic and this wasn't the time or the place. I told him there had never been a right time because he controlled every room he walked into and I was done waiting for one he'd allow. He said I was embarrassing my sister at her own dinner. I looked at my sister. She was looking at the table, but she hadn't told me to stop. My mom hadn't said a word. She was sitting completely still with her hands in her lap and her eyes down, and that stillness told me everything about what 30 years had done that no speech ever could. My father stood up and said he didn't have to sit and be attacked by his own child. I told him sitting and absorbing it was the least he could do. He picked up his jacket and left without saying goodbye to my sister. Her fiancé's parents were completely silent. My sister looked up after the door closed and said quietly thank you. My mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. He sent a message the next day saying I'd humiliated him and destroyed my sister's special evening. My sister texted me privately and said it was the best thing anyone had ever done for her. I haven't responded to him. I don't plan to. Subscribe for more stories.